Bedfaelows, friends! Welcome to Bramble On, as we discuss Love Among the Brambles, episode 15933, Strange Bedfaelows. Please excuse me if you hear intermittent coughing. Our homeland continues to rage in fire, and the smoke inhalation is becoming prohibitive despite the fact a no smoking sign has been hung on the entire planet. Yet we will ramble on. Now, let's get into this episode and hear from today's sponsor. Do you or a loved one bite your fingernails? If so, the solution is bread hands. Just slip on the baked dough gloves and nibble away. Available in 3 varieties: regular, gluten-free, and flavor-free. Bread hands, the original finger food. There you have it. Now, let's see what happened in this episode. As we know, a storm had raged through the Weald in last episode, in Muddied Up. One only can pray that such a storm ravages our countryside with rain, dousing the flames. Viola, stuck in a mudslide, hanging off the side of a cliff by the roots of a tree. Nanny Nettlebottom going out into the storm to look for her, putting all of the viewers in fear and anxiousness at the thought of what might befall her. However, who were we to ever doubt Nanny and her wisdom? She does not go blindly out into the foggy forest, searching for Viola. No, she goes straight to Stalks. He had just, as you recall, ousted Rosie Katy Diddleleaf from his home. When Nanny gets to Stalks, she tells him that she believes Viola is in danger. Further, she believes it is connected somehow to him. This is what she's intuited. Well, feeling horribly guilty, knowing that it was because of him that Viola stomped off out into the storm, when she believed that Stalk was back in Rosie Katy Diddleleaf's thrall. Stalk immediately grabs a rope, the strongest kind there is, made from spider webs. That will teach Rosie Katy Diddleleaf to mess with spiders. He takes that silk rope with him and goes out to find Viola. And between him and Nanny, they reason out where she might have gone if she was distressed, having left his house. And the direction they go into the foggy forest very quickly, blessedly, leads them to Viola. They call and call to her, thinking several times they've heard her, but it's just the howling of the rain. And at last, we hear her voice ring out, "Stalk, Stalk, please help me, Stalk." He lowers the silk rope. She grabs with every last ounce of strength she has, her hands rigid from clinging on to the root, and he pulls her up to safety, the 3 embracing, Viola, Stalk, and Nanny. Thereafter, the 3 go back to Stalks to wait out the storm, to warm up and tend to Viola, as well as ensure Nanny's health, which is always in the balance. Make sure she is warm as well. Stalk takes very good care of both of them. The next morning they wake up, the storm has passed, and we leave off after he has given them breakfast, and the color returns to Viola's cheeks, as it does with Nanny. Nanny's all smiles. That next morning, after the storm has passed, during a session when Carter goes to visit Calla at Ivy Glen, still availing himself of her services as an empath, having booked their sessions long before they were truly a romantic pair, another man shows up, a random individual no one knows, and he claims he has an appointment with Calla. The receptionist verifies there had been a double booking. She doesn't know how it's possible. There is no way that should happen. There is 1 block open per time slot, and once it's filled, no one can fill it again. Yet this man shows up, and his name has been put in, and one can see Carter's has been erased. One wonders how such a thing could have happened. The man flirts shamelessly with Calla, insinuating they are familiar with one another, that they know one another, causing Carter, the courter, to become jealous. One wonders if this man had been put up to the task. And one wonders by whom. Moving on. It was implied, it was teased last Plulum, that a hiring may have happened, and indeed it did. Mayor Hollow hires Slate. Slate's first real job. Slate's first job, real or not. He hires him to be an assistant at Seeley Hall, and he charges him with the task of frightening transit authority human Bernie Schwartzel into taking action. The action desired is that of routing the proposed highway around the ferry mound instead of over or through it. How Slate is to persuade and frighten Bernie Schwartzel is something neither we know, Mayor Hollow does not give any guidance, and Slate doesn't know what to do. This should be interesting. Citron goes to Nanny's home for a visit with her grandmother, seeking advice on life decisions as pertain to her Citron's career, Jeffrin the elf, and of course finds Nanny is not there, Nanny having slept at Stocks and not yet home. Citron expresses great concern upon finding her grandmother missing. Milliam, on the other hand, noting his wife's absence after the great storm, is not fazed in the least. When Citron calls him out on this, how can you be so callous? How can you be so unconcerned? He lights his pipe and he says, if something were wrong, I would know it here. And he taps on his chest over his heart. He says, perhaps she's just gone out to gather berries after the storm. The early morning berries after a storm, of course, are always sweeter, cleaner, and easier to pick. Citron ends up staying to chat with Milliam about his great love for Nanny, a love that had been deep in his heart for centuries, long before Nanny ever married her first husband. And finally, that love was fulfilled when she and Milliam married very recently. And Citron, as we know, is very garrulous, usually runs the conversation, is the flame around which moths gather in any social situation. She sits by Milliam's feet and listens quietly, taking in everything Milliam has to say. By the time Nanny gets home, Citron is gone. However, Magnolia had spent the night in the guest room. Milliam didn't mention that to Citron. Citron didn't know her good friend was just a room away. But by the time Nanny gets home, Magnolia is just getting up, and Nanny and Magnolia have a heart-to-heart. Nanny senses that Magnolia is a lost soul, that she has no moral compass, she is lost, she is without guidance, and Nanny invites Magnolia to dinner with her and Milliam in thanks for saving their home from once again blowing up. This comes about, of course, when Nanny finds Milliam pouring out his latest enormous batch of never clear starshine. And he says how the house almost blew up again, it almost caught fire, he could have been killed, and now he has sworn off the spirited spirits and has Magnolia to thank. Magnolia is not quite certain how to take the invitation. She's not used to being thanked, let alone shown kindness. So awkwardly she says, why don't I just stay for breakfast instead? The touching scene in so much as the ever-smug Magnolia is thrown off, and so they do have a lovely breakfast together. We had mentioned in previous episodes that both Slate and Brook had applied for the same job at Seeley Hall, and we know that the mayor hired Slate. So, how does this affect Brook? As it turns out, Mayor Hollow hired him as well. In hiring both of them, he never mentioned compensation. He just said they were hired. One wonders if Mayor Hollow intends to ever pay them, because hiring both would strain the ring's coffers. We shall see. Brook is tasked with assisting Dodd. Let's see what Dodd was asked to do. Oh, Dodd is put in charge of dealing with the Human Transit Authority. And that means we have 3 different entities now dealing with the Transit Authority. We have Slate, who is asked to frighten Bernie Schwartzel into compliance. And now we have Dodd, who's been asked to deal with Bernie, to negotiate with him. And Brook has been asked to assist Dodd. Well, the scene in which they tried to come up with their plan, they were like the Cornerstone Coppers. The hilarity. Neither knew what to do. The plan was ridiculous, and if they are to be put in charge of negotiations, one must shield one's eyes from the debacle that we expect and look forward to. When Slate was sent off to frighten Bernie Schwartzel, he cased out the Schwartzel domicile and noticed through a window Bertie, the wife, Schwartzel, in a state of undress. He sees her through her window. She happens to glance out, and their eyes lock. She does something of a striptease for him, then beckons him to come hither with a finger gesture. Fearing reprisal, he shuffles up with a hangdog expression to the door. Once she opens it, she grabs him by the shirt, pulls him inside, and begins to have her way with him, with Slate. Slate resists at first, and then gives in. It has been quite a long time since Slate has had an amorous encounter. Now that he is married, it never happens. When he was single, it happened frequently. So he gives in to the advances of Bertie, the wife of Bernie Schwartzel, the transit authority. And they go at it, so to speak, on the Schwartzel marital bed. What will come from that? What will be the consequences? Will Bernie Schwartzel, the husband, find them? Will Brook and Dodd arrive to break up the situation, to run interference if Bernie shows up? Oh, the thought of all that could go wrong at this very wrong moment is mind-boggling. Let us hear what our callers had to say about this episode that received a 3 mushroom and 1 flower rating.
I'm not sure what to make of the situation between Slate and that human lady, Bertie. Lovemaking scene was entertaining and all, but there's just so much that can go wrong when a fae and a human, I fear Slate's in over his head this time. I sure hope he seeks out Nanny's counsel on the matter. She's seen it all and is sure to know just what to do. This has really got me rattled. I think I need a cup of tea.
Oh, I definitely think you're right that Slayton is in over his head. One can only hope he seeks out Nanny's counsel, but I don't believe that is a foregone conclusion. In order to seek her counsel, he would have to admit what he's done. And by all accounts, the look on his face, he is not proud of his dalliance, his tryst with Bertie Schwartzel. I would be surprised if he mentioned it to anyone. As for your plan to have a cup of tea, yes, there is no curative like a cuppa. Let's hear from caller number 2.
When Brook was telling Dodd about the unicornian filing system, I snickered so much my mate thought I'd sprung a leak. I have no idea what a unicornian system is, and by all accounts, neither does Brook. And poor naive Dodd, being new to the ways of the Fae, went along with it all, trusting Brook knew what he was talking about. I hope we get more scenes with them together. They're like the Cornerstone Coppers. Hilarious!
Yes. I forgot to mention the unicornian filing system. That was indeed a bit of fanciful writing. Like you, I haven't a notion as to what a unicornian filing system is. I've heard of an accordion one. This sounds much more entertaining and colorful. I enjoyed watching Dodd take copious notes on everything Brook said, Brook speaking as if an authority. Very entertaining indeed, and I too hope we get more scenes of them together. Apologies for having forgotten about the scene with the filing. Oh, that was priceless. Thank you, caller. Let's move on to caller number 3.
Raffia and Lena are engaged after just 1 episode of courting. Give me a break. I didn't really buy the relationship as being sincere, and this latest stunt confirms my suspicions. They're up to something. I think they're trying to steal Callie and Carter's thunder for starters. What they're really after is anyone's guess, and with this season almost over and 2 Hollywood episodes coming up, I'm not holding my breath that we'll find out until next season.
Yes, I believe I left that out as well. I apologize, callers. We've had no sleep due to the smoke and fire situation here. and Molly, our producer, has been ill, and I am not myself. Apologies. I did forget to mention that after we had the back and forth with Raffia, shall I destroy the Brambles, shall I forgive all, and that he began courting Lena, the two are now engaged to be married. Now, what is the purpose of this? Is it for shock value on the part of Raffia or the writers? I am with you. I do not believe this union to be sincere. I believe both are in it for their own self-seeking motives. I don't believe Raffia is over the naiad to whom he was married. And there was a little something between him and Magnolia, but I think that was just kindred spirits, not a romantic leaning. And I also got the idea that at one point Raffia was rather smitten with Citron. His union with Lena, this engagement, seems to be what one might call a power play. I'm with you. I would be very surprised if we found out this season what the upshot of that engagement will be. I think you're very wise, caller. That wraps up episode 15933, Strange Bedfaelows. I believe we only have one more regular episode before the 2 Holyloom episodes that will wrap up the season. Next episode is 15934, Untidy Bows. What happens in next Plulum's episode? Viola treats a member of the ring for PTSD. Yule preparations begin, and the Transit Authority representative, Bernie Schwartzel, is under siege. Until that final episode of the season, friends, do keep calm, do bramble on. Cheriste son.